I'm going to be adding some embroidery stitches to this cute felt stitched owl. Hey everybody, it's Joy here and welcome to my channel. So I have die cut my felt, and I'm going to show you what dies go with what. We have our face, our eyes, our belly. We have our wings. There's 2 pieces to each wing. We have our head, 2 pieces to our head. Then we have our body, and the belly piece goes on there, and there's 2 pieces to the body. We have eyes, cheeks, a beak, feet, and there's flowers and leaves. So I'm going to start with the eyes. And I'm going to start how you would normally start the eyes here. And there, I showed you that there are black felt eyes that would go on top of this stitch, but I'm not going to be doing that. So I'm starting in the middle, and it really kind of looks almost like the starting of a spider web, but I am going to add what is called a spider web rose. So I'm going to use that instead of the felt for the eyes. Now, let me just say I am a zero expert on embroidery, but I have been playing around with it lately and it is really a lot of fun. And I thought that would be just a little fun something to add extra detail, to add something a little bit different, to give this owl a little bit of texture. So I'm going to be doing 3 different types of embroidery stitches on my cute little plush owl. This is from Spellbinders and Nichol Spohr. I know she does beautiful stitching. I am not someone who sews or stitches, but I do like these little felt animals, critters. I do love felt snow flakes and all those kind of things. I do love to cross stitch. So I thought I'm going to check out embroidery. Now that I've got that done, I'm going to come back up through the center. Now, when you do a spiderweb rose, normally you have 5 of these, I'm going to call them arms, but there is 6 here. And so what you're going to do is you're going to go over one arm and under one arm and over one arm and under, and you're going to go in a circle. But because there's 6, I have to kind of group 2 of them together. So if I go over, under, then the next 2 I'm going to go over, and then it alternates. So then you're going to go and you're going to pull this in a circle. I'm only going to do it in the smallest area of the stitching. I'm not going to go all the way out to the ends of these little legs here. That's what I'm calling them. So I'm going over and under the thread with my needle. So I'm going to go over that one and then under the next, over that one and under the next, and it will alternate, and you're going to go in this nice circle. This is going to give us a really cute eye for this owl. So again, instead of using the felt, which there's nothing wrong with that, I am going to do this fun embroidery stitch. Excuse me, I almost lost my voice there. When I come to the end, then I'm going to go back down through the felt itself. I'm not worried about going through the holes that are already supplied by the die cut. I'm just going to go through the felt into the back, and then I can tie that off. So now I went to the back. I had left myself a little tail when I started stitching, and I can tie this off. I'm going to do this for both eyes. I'm just going to show one though, because that's just a lot of stitching to watch. Now I want to add a little white dot to my eye. We're going to do a French knot. So I'm going to come through the back over on the right side here. I'm going to leave a little tail. I am going to take the end of my needle. I'm going to wrap the thread around twice and then go back through, not the same hole, but right next to my hole coming up, and then pulling, keeping that held in my hand, the thread, and then pulling that through. And then we get this nice little French knot. Now, you definitely can find online, you can look these terms up and people will be able to show it way better than I can, but they really are super easy. And then you can also get books and that can show you how to do the stitches, and then you can look up online. Super, super easy. I am using the DMC thread, of course. I'm using 3. I don't have the full 6 pieces of thread in there. I'm using 3 for the black and 3 for the white. for the eyes here. So I'm going to do that again. I'm going to pull it through. I'm going to wrap it around twice. I'm going to put my needle back through right next to the hole where I came up with my thread, holding that thread tightly in my left hand. Then I'm going to pull that through. Now we have cute little dots in our eyes that give it some fun character. Then I can just tie that off, and then we can go to our next step. I'm going to tie that into 2 knots and then just trim that off. Now I will say I did do the eyes on the wrong side of this, so I had to redo it again off camera. Now I'm going to do a bullion stitch. So this is the head of the owl. So I'm going to come up through that first hole, go down through the second hole. I'm going to come back up next to my first hole in the felt, not the hole provided by the die cut. I'm going to wrap my thread around to where the wrapping around my needle is longer than from the bottom hole to the top hole that I put the thread through. I'm going to hold that with my finger, the thread around the needle, and then pull the needle through. And then I'm going to go back down at the top next to my first hole. I'm not going through the die cut hole, I'm going through the felt itself, and I'm going to pull that through, and that gives us some nice little bullion stitches. It's just, and mine are a little bit crooked, and it's probably because I'm doing it on felt and I am absolutely not an expert, but this is going to give our owl some fun texture. So wrapping it around, I'm going to hold that with my fingers. I'm going to pull that needle through. Sometimes it's a little bit difficult to pull the needle through because I'm holding it tightly. And then I'm going to put that needle through that top hole that I came through right next to it and pulling that tight. Now we're going to have that fun little texture. Onto the wings. It has 3 holes together. Each little area has 3 little holes. I'm going to do just a little straight stitch on the top 2 holes. Then I'm going to come up through that bottom hole and do a French knot. So I'm going to wrap my thread around my needle twice, holding it tight, and then pull my needle through. So let's do that again. I'm going to do a straight stitch on the top 2 holes. And then I'm going to come up from that bottom hole, wrap the thread twice around my needle, and then the needle, I'm going to just go right next to that embroidered hole. You don't want to go down through the same hole because you'll just pull everything through, and then pull that tight. And I'm going to do that for both of the wings. Then we have the flowers die cut here. There's a big one and a little one. I'm going to pull my thread through one of the holes. There's 2 holes in the center. I'm going to thread on a tiny bell and then go back down through the second hole, and then I can just tie this in the back, and now we have this cute flower with a really fun center. There is a little center that you can die cut that looks like a little button, but obviously I am not using that. I am just going to be using the bell, and I'm going to do that twice because I have 2 flowers. Then I die cut some leaves. I have 3 leaves, and I'm just going to do a running stitch here. So I go down the center, the back, in the back of the leaves, and then I'm just going to do a running stitch through this, and then when I come back to the back of the leaf, then I can tie it off. So very super simple. It just has some stitches right down the center, but it's 2 pieces together. It's going to give it a little bit of weight. It's going to look thicker rather than just one little kind of flimsy piece of felt. And then I'm going to knot that off, and I can trim that down, and I have 3 of those. So I'll do the other 2 off camera. Super, super simple and easy. Let me just trim that off. And then we can go on to our next step. We've got these cute cheeks here. I'm just going to show you one cheek. So I'm using white thread for everything. I'm going to come up next to the cheek and then go down on the edge of the cheek. And I'm just making straight little stitches, and I'm going to go around in a circle. So I'm coming up through the back right next to the cheek and the felt. And then when I go back down, I'm going over onto that pink felt and going back down. So super easy. I'm going to do this for obviously both little cheeks. I think this owl is so darling. So let me just do a couple more, and then we have that really cute cheek. I think that's the last stitch there. And then I can just knot that off in the back, and then we're going to go on to the beak. And I'm going to stitch it the same way. So I'm going to come up through the back and go down, and I'm just trying to make sure that my stitches are even as possible. I'm going to do that at the bottom. I did decide to go back at the top and add one right in the center because it just looked a little off. The stitches were even numbered, and I'm like, I don't like that. So let me just go through one more time. And now we have that cute little darling face, and then I'm going to knot this off. How cute is that? Okay, let's adhere our little face to our head, and I'm going to be doing a running stitch on this. So I'm just going to start by coming in through the front and then going up and down on every stitch, which is going to leave some opening stitches. I think this is called a running stitch. I did see Nichol Spohr do this. That's what she's called it. And I feel like it's very easy for me. And like I said, I'm not someone who sews or anything, and I don't have patience for it. So, but this was easy to do. So up and down each hole, and these holes line up on the eyes to the head. So there's die cuts there. And then once I go around completely, then I'm going to go back up and down through the holes that I missed. So then you'll just have this continuous stitch around the edge. So I'm going to finish coming around over here. I do feel like once you get this first row, this first time around of stitching, the second one is so much easier. It goes like so much faster. I feel like you can find the holes easier. I'm just trying to make sure I'm lining everything up. I did get some funky stitches on this, but I mean, it's handmade, and you know, I don't sew. And some of them I could cover up with the flower, so that was nice. So now I'm coming back where I'm meeting where I started, and I can just go back in now, and now I'm going to be filling in the stitches that are kind of open, and now it's going to be a solid stitch, so I can just go around that edge. I am using 3 strands of thread for that. I did forget to mention, I did use 6 strands of thread for the detail on the wings and the detail on the head. So for the bullion stitch and the French knot, I used 6 strands of thread for that. So I'm going to finish up here. And once I get to that end piece, I can just kind of go through the face and then add a little knot, and it should hide behind his cute little mask there. I'm going to do the same thing for the 2 wings. There's a front and back, so the same kind of stitch up and down each one of the stitches, and then I'll just repeat it a second time, and that will fill in, and we'll have a nice steady look of stitches around the edges. So again, do that for both of the wings. The back wing does not have the decorative stitching on the front, so there's 2 different dies for that. And what I love about the dies is that it tells you how many times you need to die cut something. Like, it has a little number next to it, which I think is fabulous, and I love that Spellbinders does that. So that little wing is done. I'll do the same thing for the other one. Now, I did do the belly on the wrong side, you guys. It's supposed to go on the other side. It's supposed to be flipped around. I'm a ding-dong and was not paying attention. So I'm going to sew the little patch, I'm going to call it his little light patch of belly, onto the front piece of his body. Now, these are actually 2 different colors of felt. They're pretty close in color, but they're very light, obviously. This is from, like, I think it's the neutral pack from Spellbinders, and then I had the green and red and orange in my stash. The pink was also part of that neutrals pack. You can tuck the feet under, and I would say probably do that. Tuck the feet between the front and back body and then sew it. I did it on the front, and I do think it looks really cute, but when I had to go around and sew the whole body, I had to be creative and not go through the feet both times, so that was a little bit of a thought process. So I would say sandwich your feet between the 2 bodies. Now I have the back body and the front, and I'm going to sew those together, and this is where I have to kind of finagle going around the feet. Yeah, I shouldn't have done it that way. It worked out fine, but it was a little bit of an issue. Once I get around, this is my first time around because we do want to stuff the body, and I'm using some fiberfill to put in, I think it's called polyfiberfill, to put inside. And I'm not going to stuff a lot, just a little bit, but I'm going to get over to the side over here where I'm going to leave a little bit of a hole. But let me get around these feet. This is where I'm like, oh my gosh, Joy, figure it out. And I was getting really tired, so it kind of didn't matter. I was like, it'll be fine and it'll be cute. So I'm going to pull apart that fiberfill. I'm going to stuff that inside. I'm going to add a little bit more. I don't want to over fluff his little body. And then I'm going to go back around. I'm going to close up that hole and then go back around with that same running stitch. So again, up and down each hole. And then the second time around, you're going to fill in those gaps, and then you'll have a great stitch around the edge. But now I'm closing up that hole, and he's got stuffing in his little lower part of his body. He is just so cute. And I didn't add any stuffing to the wings. I didn't put any in his face, but there will be some obviously in his body, and then I will also put some in his head. So I'm going to go around that second time. I'm not going to show all of that. Now I do have some ticking fabric from the fabric store, this red and kind of cream color, and I want to add a hanger to him. I just think that'd be so cute. I want him to hang somewhere. And this is my little Christmas owl. So I'm going to put that in place, just kind of holding that there, and I'll stitch it in place when I'm stitching around his head. So now we have the head, and then we're also going to have to attach his wings to his body and then sew the head to the body, which to me, I'll be honest, at first it felt quite overwhelming. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to do this. But it actually, one step at a time, it was easy. I had to find all the holes, but it was easy. So you know, if you've not ever sewn much before and you want to, just do it because these are so cute. It's so worth it. It really is kind of fun. But I'm making sure that my fabric here was down far enough in his head that when I stitch through, it's really going to hold him in place. And it's not like he's that heavy either. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to go down to one side. On that left side, I'm going to go down kind of to the bottom of his cheek area, and then I'm going to pin his little wings to his body, and then we can start sewing that together, and then we have to stuff his head. So I'm going to place his wing in the front. This is where his belly patch should be on the other side, but I mean, it's not the end of the world, but I did it backwards. So I'm just warning you, don't do it like me. And then we've got his cute little wing in the back. And so I'm making sure that gets in a nice spot. I want to make sure I can see that really nicely, holding that in place with some pins. And then I'm going to open up his head because he's got his front piece and his back piece. And that's going to be on the front and back of his body. And I will pin that in place too, because I am not someone that can hold something in place like this. It's like there's too many moving parts or something. So I'm going to pin him in place. And then I can start sewing around where now his head is going to be attached to his body, which is also going to be attached to the wings. So I want to make sure I'm going through all of those parts when I'm sewing this. And I do get some funky stitches back here, but I figure it's the back of the owl. It's okay. So I'm going to go through this. We're going to work over to the right side of his head, and then we can stuff his head and then go back around just like the other stitches, the same kind of running stitch to fill in those gaps. So I'm just checking to make sure that his head is not floating above his body and it kind of shifted. So I'm making sure to hold it down nicely. Again, also making sure when I come across the wings that I'm really stitching those down as well. And it did feel a little flimsy right now, but once I got that second round of stitching, everything felt like it was holding nicely. And I did add a little bit of hot glue under the wings to hold to the body just a little bit. Now I'm already going to say I totally forgot to show myself hot gluing the flowers on, you guys. I show you the end, so we'll be able to see that here in just a little bit. But let's go through this side. I'm going to come up and let's add some stuffing into his cute little noggin. So I'm going to pull it apart, because I guess if you don't, it can get lumpy in there. So just a little bit, nothing crazy. But look at how cute he is. And aren't those fun embroidery stitches? Just a little something extra. I feel like it just gives him some texture to his body, which I love. So let's close up this hole on the side. And then, like I said, I will go back around once again and then tie that off on the side of his head. It was kind of a bigger knot too, so it kind of was ugly, but I'm going to cover it with a flower. So here's the flowers and leaves, you guys. I glued them. I totally thought I was recording and I was not. But how cute is that? Just some hot glue. I did not stitch these down. He hangs beautifully, or she hangs beautifully. I guess it's a girl because she has flowers. I love that red and green pop against all those neutrals. What a cute little Christmas owl. I love this. So thank you guys so much for watching and hanging on through my stitching. I hope that you enjoyed this project, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day.